to real football, Toronto FC has broken the bank to sign, and guys, forgive me if I'm slaughtering this guy's name, Lorenzo Insigne. Did I say it right, Dave?
Yeah, it sounded good.
From Italy? Okay. $15 million a year, 5 years, $15 million per season with an option for a sixth. Dave Zyron, you in or out on Toronto FC of Major League Soccer paying big league money to Lorenzo Insigne?
Oh, I'm all the way in. The Toronto footy culture is something that is very under-discussed and underrated. And it seems appropriate to me that the professional ranks would mirror the incredible youth sports system that it does exist in Toronto and the development of players that we are seeing really for in this generation, I think in an unprecedented way. I'm talking about men's and women's soccer in this regard. So when you have that fertile grounds, you make the investment. So I'm all in on that.
Perfect. Megan McPeak, you in or out?
I mean, the only way you're going to get better is if you play the best players. So
Yeah.
I'm in. If it makes them better, then, hey, throw it down.
Throw it down.
Now, as for me, look, I'm still not convinced that MLS hasn't borrowed elements of its business structure from our friend Mr. Ponzi, right? Because it's like it's a single entity league. You don't own the teams, you own the right. Like each MLSE, each ownership group owns the right to operate the local franchise. And the whole thing becomes more valuable when more people buy in, and the expansion fee is always rising. So whatever, I can't remember what it cost Toronto FC to buy in back in 2005, 2006, in the run up to TFC, but it's a lot more now. But the byproduct of that is there's a lot more money lying around to pay guys like Mr. Insigne. And from a sports standpoint, here's the significant part of it is that, when I covered TFC back in 2007, and even back when Toronto FC signed Jermaine Defoe, like these types of signings for the most part were for old guys who just wanted a highly paid victory lap. That's what David Beckham had. That's sort of what Jermaine Defoe had. And the difference with Insigne is that he is a really good player who is still young enough to make an impact. Like he's here to play. He's not here just to get the money and just to be famous. And so if if Toronto FC loses money on him, like if they don't get that money back directly in ticket sales, merchandise sales, in like the big bump that comes with winning a championship, so be it. Like, you guys have the money. Clearly you do, because you gave it to them. So I'm like, if a big corporation winds up losing some money on this, guys, this is the game you're playing. I'm not going to feel bad for you. I always like it when players get paid. There you go. And it gives fans, and again, like MLS fans, like, and MLS itself has said, we want to be like a major league. Our name is Major League Soccer, not minor league soccer. We can't just always be the place for guys that are too young, for guys on their way up and guys on their way out. Like, we have to at some point be the place where people want to spend quality years of their careers. So are they going to lose money on it? Maybe. Am I in on it? Sure. I like it. I love it. All right, last one. Because Megan brought this up at the beginning of the episode. We record Monday mornings. Monday night is the college football national championship game between Georgia and Alabama, two scrappy underdogs, two overlooked Cinderellas. Okay,
this might be the most grinded out, low scoring game we've seen in a long time in college football.
All right,
these two teams like to play defense.
But this is the first college national championship in the name, image, and likeness era. So players can now go sign sponsorship deals. Bryce Young from Alabama is reportedly making upwards of $1 million a year just in terms of sponsorships. Brampton's John Mechie, who plays for Alabama, he's injured right now. He's a wide receiver, but he has deals with like vegan sports supplement companies because apparently John Mechie doesn't eat. So they can do this now. But the coaches are concerned. Here's Kirby Smart. You're going to have haves and have-nots, and the separation that is already there is going to grow even larger. the schools, this is Kirby Smart talking to ESPN, the schools that have the capacity and the ability are more competitive in the name, image, and likeness market are going to be the schools that step ahead on top of other schools. So I don't want recruiting decisions to be made on that. But ultimately, a lot of young men will want to make their decision based on that. Megan McPeak, are you in or out on the idea that unregulated access to sponsorship deals is going to be the factor that ushers in an era of competitive imbalance in college football?
I actually think that it is definitely going to have an effect across the board when you think of college football and college basketball. I think you look at schools you can look at schools in any conference. And if you're not one of the big name schools in a good area, you could lose out on some really talented recruits because they go to another school who has better sponsorship opportunities. And I don't know if this is necessarily going to be the downfall, but I definitely think this is going to play a role in a lot of the, mid-major schools who might've got a player because they wanted to stay close to home, losing out on some of this talent because of the name, image, and likeness. So it's definitely going to be something that I think is going to be kind of tweaked and might have to be in some way, shape, or form looked at. But I am in that this is going to have some definite cause and effect on recruiting going forward.
I'm out on what Kirby Smart and Nick Saban are saying, only because the competitive balance has not existed in a long time. Like college football is now like international rugby. Look at international rugby. New Zealand isn't number one all year, every year, but New Zealand is never below the top three. And the rest of the top four are always some combination of England, France, South Africa, Australia. And that's it. And then there's another tier after that. And then there's another tier after that. And this is what college sports has become. You look at who's in the national championship every year, some combination of Georgia, Alabama, sometimes Clemson, sometimes Ohio State, sometimes Oklahoma. And that's who we've had for the last few years. And so that's not going to change. And Alabama is the constant. And so this idea that allowing people to get sponsorship deals is going to create competitive imbalance. There already is competitive imbalance. And schools that are willing to spend the most money consistently on football are the ones that do this. And they're the ones that benefit most markedly on the recruiting market. And so the schools themselves cannot spend money on players. But when you look at locker rooms where every single locker has an LED screen, LED touch screen where you can, sign in, see what your classes are, see how much protein they want you to take, all this stuff. This is what happens in these locker rooms. So the idea, and Alabama can afford that, Georgia can afford that, Clemson can afford that, Appalachian State can't afford that. So let's not pretend that name, image, and likeness is the thing that gives Alabama an advantage over these smaller schools. And what smaller schools can do in this era is like Deion Sanders is doing at Jackson State. Hey, well, you might want to go to this big school. You can come here and be a much bigger fish in a smaller pond. And look, we got all these third-party people who want to pay you money to endorse their products. And you stand out a lot more here than you would at USC. Why don't you? So this NIL era actually can also give a lot of smaller schools a chance to compete with bigger schools because it's not always dependent on how nice of a gold-plated locker room the school can provide. Dave Zyron, you in or out?
Oh, I mean, I'm reminded so much of the teams that said we don't want free agency in Major League Baseball in the 1960s. They tended to be teams like the New York Yankees, and their arguments tended to be the same, that it would upset competitive balance. Now, at the time, the competitive balance was the Yankees make it to the playoffs every single year and win every third World Series. So they want, that's what Nick Saban and Kirby Smart want, is they want the current competitive balance set up because there is no competitive balance. The only competitive balance is them getting 10-figure contracts and, doing their thing. So I am of the belief that we are going to see a tremendous flattening of the landscape with name, image, and likeness. You're going to be able to see schools. It's not just about the Jackson States and the Alabamas, the little guys and the big guys. There have been sleeping giants in college football for years, like Tennessee, for example, that haven't been able to get out of their own way. That maybe this is a time where they will able to actually recruit some of the players that they've been losing to the Alabamas and the Georgias. Because of name, image, and likeness. A place like the California schools are going to benefit profoundly from name, image, and likeness, and they haven't made much of a peep in recent years. I mean, so I think that there's a lot there that not only on the basic social justice tip, that this is just the right thing to do, it's also going to make college football better to the chagrin of the Kirby Smarts and Nick Sabans of the world.